The Emmy Award-winning program Aspire would like to thank the personnel and the viewing audience for their loyal and generous support.
Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao-tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We'll find in who we are. There's so many roads.
Welcome to Aspire. We have a brand new series that we're very excited about offering to you beginning this morning. We're going to let East meet West, and we're going to talk about one of the most beautiful of all spiritualities, the possibility for enlightenment, spiritual transformation. We're going to be working with a theme called No Moon, No Water, a story of enlightenment from a little nun. I think you'll enjoy it. In the second half of Aspire, we're going to have Brian Jameson with us as well. So come be with us and aspire to your heart.
We're wrong dancers. Aspire. Just believe we can be everything.
So much of our life has been spent in missing the point of what real living is all about, that on this particular program I wanted to go into one of my very favorite stories, because it tells us about what life really is all about, beyond the things that we do and beyond the things that we say. The most important thing that we need to always remember about our own selves is that so much of our life has been missed. And because we miss so much of our life due to our preoccupation of our opinions and what we think should be right and should be wrong, what we think should be good, what should be bad, that we misunderstand that there is something far deeper to our life than just the common rigmarole of daily living that we go through. I don't think a lot of us understand why we do this. People watch this program or go to church, and they're looking for something to get them through the day, something to push them through the day, something to get them through problems. Our lives are a series of one problem to another, from one existence to another existence. And I think after a while there comes a time where you want to stop that, where you don't want to live from one problem to another, from one person to another, from one condition to another, where you want to break it. We miss so much. I think the saddest thing that can happen to any of us is to come to some point in our lives where we begin to see that no matter what we've done or what we have, it's not the point of life. And what a terrible thing to happen to us, that we begin to realize everything that we've wanted and everything that we've gained and everything that we thought would make us happy can't. And it's at that particular moment, when we stop in that particular moment, that we begin to see something quite beautiful. And that is that life is really a spiritual experience. And it has nothing to do with the things that we got, the things that we lost, the things that we gained, the things that we thought. The work is for enlightenment, not just coping, enlightenment. Enlightenment is a very unusual step. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to be a suddenly different person, such a different person that the heavens are going to open up and you're going to float on the air. That's what everybody wants, and that's Hollywood. Enlightenment is different than that. It's really becoming simple again. So simple, so humble, that we see the reason for our life. And we see a purpose for it. We have studied for many years And we have a lot of knowledge in our head. We have a lot of knowledge about Jesus, and we have a lot of maybe knowledge about Eastern religions or Western religions and philosophies. And people are tending to move towards the East a little bit because of the sense of its delicacy and balance. I think for the first time in a lot of us, there's this subtle awakening in us that there is a spiritual essence in us, and we want that. But how do we get that? The knowledge that we have about anything, remember this, always in life is useless. Knowledge is always useless. Knowledge is something that is dead. You borrow it for a while, you keep it in your head, and it never goes any further than that. And that's the problem with us. We have a lot of knowledge, all of us. The first step towards enlightenment is letting that kind of knowledge go by the wayside. I want to share with you one of my very favorite stories. It's a story about a little lady, a woman who became a nun and eventually a monk and found her own sense of enlightenment. And it happens in a different way for all of us. But for me, this story has touched me. And for some of you who know the story, it means a lot to you too, I'm sure, because we've talked about it before. It's a story of a woman who was a nun. I will read this to you. We're working with the concept of the word Zen, and I want you to understand that Zen is not a religion. Zen is not a philosophy. It is a movement in us. It's a method to find ourselves. That's all it is. Don't confuse it with religion. It's not Christianity. It's not Buddhism. It's not Taoism. It's simply a method. Let me read to you this beautiful little story. When the nun, and we'll leave her name out of this for now because there are so many different interpretations about it, studied under Zen with her Roshi, she was unable to obtain the fruits of her meditation for a long time. At last, one moonlit night, she was carrying water in an old pail bound with bamboo. The bamboo broke, and the bottom fell out of the pail, and at that moment, she was set free. It's simple things like that kind of experience where you are doing something you might think is very mundane and has a lot of symbology to it. Enlightenment occurs. It happens. It's sudden. And when you least expect it, it occurs and happens, and I will tell you why. When you're not trying to make it happen, that's when it happens. When you're not trying to make life happen, that's when it happens. Here this little nun is carrying water from the well back, and the bamboo suddenly begins to break, like our mind begins to break. She looked at the whole thing as kind of a metaphor. We carry an old pail with us. It's an ancient pail. It is our mind. And in that mind, there is a lot of memory. And we store a lot of things in it. We think in our meditating, if we use repetition of thought or of attitude, that something's going to happen. But eventually the pail breaks under the weight of all that knowledge. And it's only when you and I give up, when we totally let go and say, I can't do this anymore, that the possibility for spiritual transformation begins to occur. And that's what the story represents. When the pail broke, the nun let herself break. She began to see it was not her mind. Her mind had become the barrier, not the bridge yet. And so she wrote this beautiful little poem. I am so touched by the poem. I have it in my office. And where my desk sits, I can look at it every day. And it reminds me of the posture. And she gave us the secret of her enlightenment. She said, in this way and that, I tried to save the old pail, since the bamboo strip was weakening and about to break, until at last the bottom fell out. No more water in the pail, no more moon in the water. Now life was not a delusion. She saw life for what it truly is. Let me tell you what enlightenment is. It will happen to all of us at one moment or another. It is in that moment in our life where we are willing to see life just for it is, without looking at it from our moralistic, religious, and limited point of view. That's when we see God for the first time. God not as a being that we are taught is above us, but as a presence within us. And your only practice for this is to meditate, to become as still and as quiet as you can every day of your life, and let the bamboo break. Let your mind break. Let there be those times when you let go of your belief, of your conditional love, of your fear, of the feelings of worry over your change, and let the bamboo break. And that moment will happen And when that bamboo breaks in us, when there's nothing left, no more belief, no more fear, no more preconceived notions, there's no more water in the pail, no more moon in the water. Total enlightenment.
Just believe we can be everything.
We're going to have as our guest on this particular segment of Aspire a man who I personally feel very close to. I have a great deal of respect for him. He has been, so to speak, a therapist, a counselor for myself, and many of the people who come to my center. His name is Brian Jameson. As you know, he's been on many programs with us, and we always get so much mail, and many of you ask us to have him back on, and it's our privilege to have him back on. Brian, welcome back to Aspire.
Glad to be back.
A lot of the things that you've helped me with, and I think a lot of the things that you've helped, most of the people here who are here with us this morning have worked with you, is on this idea of decisions that we make. And there are subtle decisions that we make to undermine ourselves. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about the decisions, because this is something you helped me with a great deal.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that an awful lot, if not all of our life, is either lived as an effect of our own decisions on ourselves, or at the effect of other people's decisions about us, which we buy into. It's like when we're children, a lot of times some of us were a little awkward, a little, maybe we weren't as bright as we should have been in the eyes of some other people. And so they'll lay a trip on us at a very early age, you know, well, you're stupid, you know, you're never going to amount to anything. And if this comes from somebody that you respect and love, or you're supposed to, then quite often the child will decide that they're right, and that's what I am. And that decision will hold the rest of their lives unless they consciously change that decision and decide that, hey, I'm okay, I'm at least as smart as everybody else in the class, and I'll probably amount to something someday. And then they'll make other decisions on the basis of their secondary decisions. But if they never go back and find out where those primary decisions are made, then they can be operating on that the rest of their lives. It's like a computer. Once the program is in, then it stays there. And whether that program has any validity or not is immaterial. If the decision is made, it's thus saith the Lord, as far as you're concerned. And so I find a lot of times people will inadvertently, absent-mindedly, in a moment of despair, whatever, make a decision based on some belief system that they have that will have a negative effect on them the rest of their lives unless they change it. And so during my sessions, I like to not only check the past lives, but have you made any decisions in this lifetime that are serving to harm you as opposed to helping you? For instance, most people, everybody wants to be happy. I think most people like to hope that someday they'll be happy. And they wait for something to happen. They wait for somebody to make them happy. They assume that if they get this or if they get that, they'll be happy. And they aren't, and they can't understand why they're feeling despair or why they're feeling this emptiness, and yet they never got around to making a decision to be happy. And Abraham Lincoln said that most people are as happy as they make their minds up to be. And so it makes you wonder why more people, instead of wanting it to be happy, wanting to be happy, wanting to lead fulfilling lives, why they don't make up their minds to do so, instead of looking at all the obvious limitations out there that says I can't, and say, well, let's put those aside and let's look at what's in it for me and do it that way.
We just don't do it.
That's true.
So by changing our attitudes and changing some of the things that we believe in and dropping them, we become more clear to make the subtle decision that, yes, happiness is something that we want.
It's possible, so let's go for it.
I want to thank you for being with us on this segment. Thank you, Brian. I think you bring a lot of help to a lot of us. And many of you out there, if you would like to get in contact with Brian Jameson, please feel free to give us a call. We'll be most happy to tell you how you can get a hold of him. I'm sure that many of you here, as well as many of you at home, have questions about what we've talked about this morning, and this would be a good time to take them. We hope that some of the people here will be asking some of the questions that you might be asking. First question, Pamela.
Greg, there's those of us that have been taught all of our lives that knowledge is the key to everything. How do we begin to forget that?
You have to begin to see the futility of things. Please remember, you will never let go of anything until you're absolutely sure that it's not getting you anywhere. If I say to you that your knowledge won't get you anywhere, knowledge will make you convenient. It will make life convenient. It will not offer enlightenment. Okay, there's a difference there. And I think that people have to go through many things. You have to really go through your experience. You've got to build up all the knowledge you possibly can, hold it in your mind, go through the whole shtick with that maybe for a while until you realize, hey, no matter what I think I know, until I actually drop it and start to quote unquote live it, it doesn't matter. So the major key is to have your knowledge for as long as you can hold it. And then when you see that it's not getting you anywhere, then you'll let it go. I had all the answers for a long period of time, as I've told you guys so many times. I was trained to have the answers, and I thought it was important to have all of the answers. I began to find out that I could answer your questions, but I couldn't know you. I couldn't have an experience with you. I didn't have even an experience of my knowledge. And until you have the experience of your knowledge is useless. So the only way to have that is to drop it. There comes a time when it's like riding a bicycle. You have a bicycle and you have trainer wheels and you ride it for a while and you know that it's possible to ride on two wheels until after a while you say, okay, I'm done with the trainer wheels, I take them off, I get on the bicycle and I ride without them. It's a kind of a knowingness in you, and that's what knowledge has to do. It has to go from the unknown to the known. And the only way to do that is sometimes to live it fully, and then eventually you drop it. You go, it was just like doing this program with you. I had things planned out for you to do. I did some of them, but very few. After a while, you get to learn to trust. You begin to trust yourself. It's more important, Pam, that you trust yourself than it is that you build a lot of knowledge about the things that I would say or anyone would say. Learn to trust the spirit in you. We call that spirit God or love. Some people call it the Christ nature, Buddha nature, whatever it is. You got to learn to trust it. And the only way you'll do that is to meditate and to practice it a little bit. Next question. Right behind you.
Could you please explain humility a little more to us?
Humility. Something I'm working on, and I'm sure all of you are. It is so necessary. Humility is not putting ourselves down in a position where we are feeling like we're not as good as other people or not as good as life. True humility is understanding yourself as life. But the only way you can do that is to drop the illusion of what you have been taught you are. You've been taught that you're a race, you've been taught you are a sex, you are taught you are a nationality, you are taught that you are a religion. How can there be humility in any of those? Most Western religions that we see today say they are the only way. If you're not this, then you're not going to make it. What a terrible thing to say. True humility is the point of saying, I don't know, and Jesus did this, and he did it so beautifully. He said, I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within me which doeth the work. That's true humility. He's saying, Jesus, could go into this situation. I could botch it up. I could go into it with my ego and my personality and my pride, and I could make an issue out of it. But he chose not to. Humility is recognizing that the ego part of us wants to acquire and obtain and hold on to and make problems. Humility is the point of seeing the futility of that. And that also goes with Pam's question about knowledge. The greatest teacher that you and I have together is not the one that sits before you here or anyone else or a book. Your greatest teacher and mine is futility. It's that point where we keep bumping up against the wall of ourselves over and over and over until we have a little bump on our forehead. You know what I mean? There was once, I read about this, there was once a Zen master who prided himself on having a bump on his forehead, and the bump came from bowing all the time, always bowing and hitting his head on the floor. And he made a ritual out of it. It is yielding. You know, I used to think it's what you knew that was so important, and now I'm finding out it's what you don't know that is more important. It's the ability to say, I don't know. You see a situation. Maybe you're told you have cancer, or a loved one is leaving you, or things are changing in your life. And people will say, well, what do you think about it? How do you feel about it? What do you know about it? And the best thing is to reserve no judgment. And have no judgment about it and say, well, I think this and I think that. I think this is positive. I think this is negative. It's best to say, I don't know. In doing that, we leave ourselves open for the possibility of God. Before, we were trying to make God happen. God doesn't happen because you make God happen. If that were true, then all of our prayers would be answered and everybody would drop their weapons and their war tools and then we would stop this mess. But it doesn't work that way. It works when I allow myself to be void, to be empty enough to experience God. God is not experienced through a full mind, but through a humble attitude. And attitude is everything. Attitude is not the things you believe in, it's what you bring to your meditation. Attitude is what you bring to your tithing. Attitude is what you bring to your business. Attitude is what you bring to your loved ones. Attitude is what you bring to everything, your work, your family. And behind that attitude, if there is hostility, arrogance, egotism, fear, that's going to seep through. Humility is something we all work on. We work on it diligently, and we should work on it moment to moment. It's okay to have problems. It's okay. It's okay to say, I don't know. And no one's given us permission for that. Everybody's trying to fill all the spaces up with some sort of opinion and knowledge, so we walk through life, we go, I've got it all. No one has it all. I certainly do not have it all. But in having less, I have found more. So this is why I say to you guys constantly, to everyone, don't go study more. You don't need one more new idea in you. You don't need one more philosophy, one more affirmation, one more denial, one more fear. You don't need any more of that. You've had enough. Now what we need to do is sit quietly. Stillness, silence is the answer. We can be so silent and so quiet that we can actually listen to it. Where we don't think about God, but we feel the presence. It is more than just what we do, what we say. It's who we are that counts. That is the essence of it. Humility is very important. It's the ultimate step in our spirituality. Very few people seem to want to take it. I'm not sure why. I think it's our need to be right. Namaste. No moon, no water. Truly one of the most beautiful stories of the possibility for spiritual transformation in all of us. You know, I notice that Westerners have a great deal of difficulty with any kind of Eastern thought or concept. Many people do. Sometimes it's due to prejudice and sometimes it's due to a lot of other things. But basically, we're afraid of the East because it represents our heart. The heart of us that is true, not the emotion, but the heart that is the pathway to life, to God. When East meets West, when the heart meets the mind, transformation then is a possibility. Then God is the possibility of our life. It's very important that we understand that. This little nun had a very beautiful experience. The opportunity for her enlightenment happened when she dropped the fears and the worries and the rigidity and the beliefs of her mind and allowed her heart to take her to herself. This week, may that opportunity happen to you. We are very grateful for the opportunity of being with you on Aspire. Many of you know we recently won this beautiful Emmy for Best Religious Program in San Diego. And this Emmy was made possible by people like you. And we want to thank you for your support and help, which make Aspire possible. Have a beautiful week. Namaste.
We're finding who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are. There's so many